Chez, episode 24, épisode 24. Warren Huxham, a proud Quebecer, a proud Canadian, and I'm throwing a wrench into. Like, I've done hockey players, I've done obviously PGA Tour stars, I've done caddies, and now I have a golf architect on the show, which is amazing because I'm a big fan of it. And so how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. It's nice to talk with you.
Absolutely. Thank you for accepting my invitation. A little bit of last minute. I'm really busy at Laval, but I appreciate it. So, where's Warren from? Are you born and raised in the Montreal area?
I was born in Toronto, lived there for about 2 years, and then my dad, being an engineer, we traveled a lot when I was younger. So I lived in India for 3 years, Brazil for a couple. But I've been in Montreal since I was about 8 or 9. So yeah, pretty much Montreal most of my life.
Wow. Now, obviously, you've traveled quite a bit. Was golf always like? When did you start playing golf? Was it always a part of your life?
Yeah, absolutely. My father was a keen player, and we joined Beaconsfield when we finally resettled in Montreal, probably when I was about 8 or 9. So my older brother started playing, and as soon as I was about 10, I joined Beaconsfield, and I've been a junior. I was a junior there through the program, and I've been playing there ever since. So I got 43 years or something like that at Beaconsfield. So yeah, I picked it up there and loved the game ever since.
Yeah, it's one of my Beaconsfield is one of my favorite courses in Quebec, no doubt. Take me through your. You mentioned you were a junior at Beaconsfield. Did you play any junior amateur events growing up?
I played. I guess what we would call the junior tour from let's say 14 to 18 or 19, and played all the field days. All the courses, and I played interclub, metropolitan for Beaconsfield. So I got a good taste of all that and really loved it. Just loved the competition, and a good bunch of guys there, and yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So back then, when you had the interclubs, was it still like Beaconsfield, Royal, Whitlock, Summerley? Was that what it was?
Yes, that was our interclub. And then when we played the metropolitan, which was just one event, it was, I guess, the original 4. What is it? Laval, Kanawaki, Royal, and Beaconsfield.
Wow, that's not too shabby. Those are those are all great. Those are all great. So are you still a member at Beaconsfield?
Yes, I am. I actually played this morning, so I'm still an active member there. Yeah.
Fantastic. How'd you get into golf architecture?
Well, I originally got a degree in commerce and marketing, but while I was going to school, I had met Graham Cook, and through golf, and he had his business so this was late 80s, early 90s, and his business was really starting to take off. And he had asked my brother and I to do a bit of field work for him, surveying, tree marking for, simpler stuff, early stages of the construction. So we got into it doing part-time work that way while I was going to school. And then after about 2 years of that, when I graduated, he was very busy, had a lot of contracts, and I guess it had gone well with him. So he asked me to work for him full-time. So I did.
Okay. Now, did you have to get any sort of like specifications? Like, did you have to take classes, or can you is it kind of just like me as a professional caddy? I just was asked by a friend to caddy, and there I was.
Well, back in those days, yes, there was no real courses to be a golf course designer. You would, if you wanted to, follow the book, you would become a landscape architecture that would teach you how to do the planning and stuff for maybe parks and parking lots. But unless you were really immersed in golf, that wouldn't really help you too much more than that. So, basically working in the field and learning it from the ground up, I can't think of a better way. And that's what I did.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I want to, because I'm so interested, and we'll get through the courses you guys have done in Quebec and favorite courses around the world, but take me through the process of like designing a course. Like, how do you find the land? Is it someone that calls you, hey, I own a great piece of land and I would love to design a golf course? Or do you have people going out for you and scoping, mapping, like the topography or something of the land?
Now, usually you'll have a client who will come to you and say, I have a piece of land, or I have options on 2 or 3 pieces of land, and I want you to take a look at them and tell me, what you can do for me. So we would do a concept plan just to show the potential of the project to him, so that he could get excited about it and then decide to go ahead with it, or even just to get funding and get permitting. So quite often you just start with a piece of land someone owns. They give you a topographic map, you go walk it, and then you do a concept plan to show the potential of it, and then you throw a budget in there. So he's got a nice plan, an idea of the potential, and he has a budget. And at that point, he can decide, okay, I want to go ahead with this. And then once we get permitting, then we take it to the next level and we start building.
But now with like the modern courses and all that, like basically everything has to be 7,500 yard to be tournament ready and all that. It's got to be. Is it more costly now than like 20, 30 years ago, or is it sort of the same?
I would say it's the same in the scope of the work. Everybody's wanted a 7,200 yard par 72 championship course since I've been in the business. Not everybody, but that's always been the number one standard. But a lot of the time the property's not big enough, or the market's not really there for it, and that's not really their vision. They say, I wanted 60, what do you think? 6,800, is that enough for, just a good normal golf course? And often it is. And most of our courses are that way, but occasionally you get a client who really wants to have tournaments, like La Tempête. They were very eager to have, Skins Games, Champions Tour, and maybe even more, if it's possible in the future. So it really depends on what the client wants. But I would say, as far as costing, the quality of the projects is similar, but obviously the cost of construction has gone up a lot, especially the last couple of years with the economy just on fire, especially in Quebec. All the equipment has been busy doing roads and infrastructure work. So it's been expensive to get contractors to do the work for us. So that's been a bit of a challenge, but still just been fun nevertheless.
Now, when you get to a site and you first start moving the land, are you actually wearing rubber boots and a helmet, and you're like on a John Deere tractor, or are you directing traffic and making sure that it's according to the plans and the budget?
Depends on the contract, but let's say an average one would be, we would definitely supervise all of the work, because a pretty picture and a plan is one thing, but that's probably 40% of the deal. And then maybe 60% of it is to actually build it according to the plan. And we always have to adjust things. You're in the field, you might find a 200-year-old pine, and it's just a little bit, it's a little bit too much in play on a hole. Well, we might have to move the hole to save it, because, it's worth it. So we make a lot of adjustments in the field. So we're definitely very hands-on. Some architects are not. There's many architects in Canada and in the US that will send in plans, and they'll send a couple shapers, operators, to just kind of build it for them. They might show up twice, but that's not how we work. We're very hands-on. We like to be there all the time. When we did the Challenger for Bombardier, I was on site 4 or 5 days a week for 2 years. It was so close. I was able to. So that we like to do that. La Tempête, we're probably on site 3 days a week. And you'd be directing all of the critical equipment. Some of the simpler tasks, we would mark stuff out and let some of the site supervisors handle those tasks. We would give them information and they would do the work for us. But, some of the critical people, like the shapers, we would be talking to daily to make sure it turns out right.
That's interesting. Do you actually have credentials to operate heavy machinery, or is it always some sort of a contractor that does it?
No, we don't build. We basically do the planning, and we do the supervision, and we do project management. But we're never on a piece of equipment. That's not what we do. We will supervise people, but we know all of the top operators and equipment and companies in the country. So if a project's about to start, we will say, well, we need to get 2 shapers in. I know a guy, in the South Shore we can get. I'm going to go up a Tremblant we can get. Let's see if they're available. We'll bring them in. We need a drainage crew. We see who's available. It gives us a good price. You know, we need an irrigation crew, and we'll bring all those people to the table. And that, you know, that's kind of how it works.
Now you've just mentioned the word irrigation. It seems like the newer courses are more like on a sand base instead of a Beaconsfield or Whitlock where I'm from, and even the green course at Laval. It seems more like, you know, like the old clay base. Is that like the new modern way of building a course? Is making it more, maybe just adding a sand layer to the clay? Is that how it works?
Well, definitely. Ideally, you want to pick a site that is more sandy than it is clay. It's just gonna, right out of the gate, you're gonna be ahead of the curve. Look at Fontainebleau. We built that in 9 months. First tree cut to green in 9 months. That's unheard of. That's because we had 12 feet of sand there and beautiful trees. If you have a clay site, that project would have taken 3 years. So we always try and encourage our clients to use sandy sites, but you know, they're not always available and they're not always near where they want to be. So if we get a clay site, then what we'll do is we'll have to put in more drainage, and we'll try and bring in a sandier topsoil to try and make sure that it drains well. You know, but you can do a good job on all of them. Just a sandy site's a bit cheaper, and you'll get a better product in the end at less, less cost, just because you're starting with better soils.
Yeah, and you've mentioned the Challenger. That was, I mean, I've loved that course. That's before I moved permanently to the United States. I thought that was a beautiful golf course. It was so much, and it almost reminded me of like Scotland or Ireland with all those. I think they were like condos or type of, the old English architecture, if you want. On the left side of 18, it was a lot of fun. So you guys have done the Fairmont, Manoir Richelieu, Le Maître, which is my favorite by far, in the Tremblant area, no doubt. La Tempête. So you guys are working on a second course at La Tempête, right? Can you take us through what's going on there in Quebec?
Absolutely. We've got such a great group up there of owners. And we did the original 18, a championship course. I believe we finished it in 2005. So 15 years later here, they finally have pulled the trigger on another 18. Their market's doing well up there because Quebec as a city is a little underdeveloped with high-end courses. There's not too many new ones around. So it's done well, and they have a very good model, and the ownership there is just fantastic. And so we're doing a championship course that would be capable of holding the Canadian Open if it were ever to come to that region. It's going to be 7,300 yards with plenty of difficulty, but fair for the average player if you play the right tees. And there's a lot of bail areas. We have a lot of water. So you have risk-reward shots, very typical of our designs that you probably have noticed if you've played, several of them. You always have water to contend with, but if you want to bail and play safer, you can. But, you have a lot of choice, which is something that we like to throw into our designs.
Absolutely. And you've mentioned Fontainebleau also. There's one that I saw on the list you guys have done that I've never played that I'm really intrigued is the Country Club of Vermont.
Yes.
It seems from my experience, every time you go to a city or a state and there's like Carolina Country Club, it's a gem. You have Rhode Island Country Club. You have, usually when the state or the city is on the golf course, it usually is a really nice piece of property. Is it a nice course?
Fantastic. It has nothing to do with the state or any government. It is basically a group of investors, some of them from Montreal, who decided to do a high-end private course. I think they charge 185 American at this point, and they wanted a high-end course. And so we came in there. It was very mountainous, so we did a mountain course design. We made it as playable as possible. And I think within 3 years, it was number 2 or number 3 in the state. So we were really proud of that. It's a great track. If you ever get down there to play that, you'll love it. It's fantastic.
I'd love to. Now, have you ever had to like say no to a project because it's just too hilly, too much in a hill, or it's just a crazy project, and you know that you won't respect the budget, or it's just going to cost $1 billion to do?
Well, what we do is we look at the site and we're perfectly honest with them. We say, well, what type of course do you want? Or we'll propose, I think this is what you should put in here for your market and your budget ability. And sometimes it become evident to the client that, maybe this isn't the best site. Maybe we should move on and find another one, or it's just not feasible. I think that would be more how it goes. But we did a course in Korea. And when we walked on site, it was like building a golf course at the top of Mont Tremblant, because in Korea, all of the lowlands and the valleys is too valuable. So they have farming there, and that's where the housing is. So the only place you can build a new course in South Korea is up in the mountains. And this course had a elevation drop of 240 meters from one edge of the property to the other. And that's only 5 tiers coming down. So it was like building on the side of it was building on the side of a mountain. But when we looked at it, we said, this is going to cost an absolute fortune. Then we told them how much earth moving and blasting there would be. And the client said, well, that's actually cheaper than my last architect. So you guys are hired. And they spent the money and they did it. And it's one of the most popular courses in Korea. It's just spectacular.
Wow, that's amazing. What kind of permits do you have to get? I have a green card. I'm lucky enough I can work in the United States, but how does it work for you? Like when you did Country Club of Vermont, can you just cross the line and say, I'm going to design a course, or do you need some sort of visa? Or
no, on that one, we had to get a B1 visa, which allowed us to go in and do the work. And it wasn't too complicated, but I guess we had a lawyer that went to immigration and just, organized who was coming down and how often we'd be coming down. And I think with free trade, it paved the way for it. So it wasn't too difficult. We just had to go through the procedures, but it worked fine.
Perfect. Now, where do you get your inspiration from? Le Maître, because like I said, is probably my favorite out of the list. My personal favorite courses are like US Open. If I ever designed a course, it would be unbearably hard. I wouldn't even want to play it. Like, I love Oakmont. I love Augusta National, obviously. I love Marion. I love the Long Island, New York region. I love the Chicago region, which is, a lot of people don't know about Chicago. We know about the Cubs. We know about the city. But it's a fantastic golf destination. There's 30 courses within an hour or two of downtown Chicago that are just as good as Royal Montreal or Laval-sur-le-Lac, and it's just an amazing area for golf. So where do you get? You've traveled worldwide like I have. So do you have specific, or do you have special spots for you in the world golf wise?
Well, we've made several trips. So my brother and I, Daryl, my partner, we've made a point of traveling a lot to play courses from the beginning of when we started, working in this business, down to this, Myrtle Beach in Florida, in Arizona, and then we did quite a few trips over to the UK, Scotland, to really understand all of the different types of designs that are out there and the history of the game, and just get immersed in it. And instantly, I just fell in love with the craziness of Scottish golf, and how in Canada or the States, a tier and a green of 3 feet would be astronomical. You go to Scotland, there's rolls 6 feet high. Sometimes you can't even see the person on the other side of them, and this is just normal. So to see stuff like that on the courses, it makes you go, wow, you can do anything you want, but it has to be fun. It has to be fair, in our opinion. Obviously, if you're playing a tournament course, it's going to be tough. Like you say, you love all those tough courses. You're obviously a good player. But the average person, it's no fun to go play golf. You say you're a 90 shooter and come back shooting 105. You think you're going to go back? You're probably going to go, wow, I got your tail between your legs, and probably not want to come back. So our job is to make a course fun, challenging, but still playable by most people. And that's, I think, our trademark, is making courses that are fun. And most people go out and they look at on the tee and they go, wow, this looks tough, because we'll throw a lot of bunkers out there, but a lot of them might not be in play. So you'll sit there and you'll think, wow, this is a tough course. And then when you finish, you go, wow, I shot the best round of the year. So you feel good about your game because you think it's hard, but it's actually very fair. So that's kind of what, that's the type of design we do. And I think that's why we've been successful. And that's why we're doing another course at Top Pet, because of that recipe works.
I find of all my years, I've caddied and played in Europe. It seems like it's more important in North America that 100% of the land has to be manicured in North America, and in Europe per se, like in France where I've played, British Opens I've been to, it seems like the first 100 yards off the tee is absolute garbage. Like it's not manicured, it's bushes and grass and weeds and stuff like that. Is it, like in Scotland, like you said, is it cheaper to operate a golf course in Europe because the aesthetic of it isn't that important?
I would think it is, because in North America, we've just come to think that golf courses need to be perfectly manicured gardens where you never get a bad lie and you're never up against a lip in a bunker. And if you top your ball 20 yards off the tee, you're still on nice grass. Whereas in Europe, especially in Scotland, you have forced carries of 100, 200 yards over fescue and gorse. And if you don't hit a good shot, pick up your ball. That's just kind of how they feel the game is. And we've been a little pampered over here in North America, making everything a little easier, but that's our market. People, you have a lot of people that maybe aren't very good and they want to not lose 10 golf balls. But in Scotland, like, don't go to play Scotland if you're, faint of heart and maybe you can't hit the ball 100 yards. You're going to have a tough time. You really are.
That, but the weather factor, like it could be raining under your hat and the golf course is still packed. And there's, I have some members at Laval that took a trip to Scotland, or it was Ireland, and I mean, they were miserable. Like they were flat out miserable, but at least they did it. They swear they're never going to go back, but it's kind of part of the charm over there. Like I had a chance a couple summers ago to play Carnoustie, and it was 20 Celsius and not a breeze of wind, and it wasn't really that hard of a course. But so I kind of regret that I didn't get the real treatment. But then again, I went to Oakmont and the greens were at 14 and a half, and it was absolutely unbearable to play. And so what's the hardest course you've ever played?
Hardest course I've ever played.
I've never been to. They have
one of my
courses over there.
One of my favorite, I mean, definitely a couple of ones in Scotland. Turnberry's pretty tough if it's windy, if the conditions are tough. I played Western Gales once on the west coast of Scotland, and it was about a 60-click wind raining sideways. And we just got off the plane and we said, well, it's called Western Gales for a reason. And we'd been there before. We knew the deal. And we said, well, we're going to play. We played. And our caddy, at the end of the round, he looked at us and he says, where are you guys from? And we said, well, from Canada. He says, you guys are unbelievable. I have never seen anybody, tourist, come and play our golf course in those conditions and finish 18 holes. Even the locals won't play in that. But we just kind of thought, well, that's part of the deal. And it was tough, but we had fun.
Is that the one that's a little brown brick clubhouse and the first tee's like behind the clubhouse?
I think it could be. It's north of Turnberry.
Correct.
I think they have a qualifying for the British Open there occasionally.
Yeah.
It used to be an open course back, a long time ago when it was long enough, but Western Gales for a reason. Yeah.
You played. I played that one. It was the week of the Scottish Open. The Scottish Open was right next door, a newer course. I think it was called Dundery or something like that.
Could be,
yeah. And it's right next to a train. There's a railroad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Prestwick has a railroad going right by the first hole, and they have a stone wall on the side, and it's about 15 feet high. It almost feels like it's you're playing pinball, and it keeps your ball in play. But the courses, there's so many courses over there, and the history. You go to Prestwick and you look on the wall, and it says. I think the pro there was old Tom Morris, and you can see his name written up there, and it's just so cool to see that history.
It really is. Now in North America, have you had a chance to play Pine Valley, Oakmont, any of like the top 10?
I've played TPC Sawgrass. That's one of my favorites. I love it. I think it's just an amazing test of golf. like we're big fans of maybe some of the more modern architects like Peak Dye,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's a big favorite of mine is TPC Sawgrass. I just love it. To me, it has everything. You know, it's got some of the modern elements that you see in a lot of the newer courses, but it's just a good test of golf. You know, it's long and it's challenging, and you can hit your driver off most of the tees. It's got water. Now that's one of my favorites. I was out at the U.S. Open last year at Pebble Beach watching that. I didn't get a chance to play it, but I've never seen a better piece of real estate anywhere in the world. But that location, unbelievable.
I wonder. It's funny you speak about. I wonder how much the Beaconsfield Country Club or Beaconsfield Golf Club property is worth, because it's right next to Montreal. It's gotta be worth a pretty penny as far as land goes.
Oh, no question about it. I mean, it's right in Beaconsfield, Point Claire. You know, you got some high-end homes around it. It's definitely, I think we're about 175 acres, so there's no question it has a lot of value. But I think the members really love that it's close and it has all the history of it, and it's just a fun course. You know, it's not 7,000 yards and couldn't hold a Canadian Open anymore, but it's still a great members club, and most people who play it just love it. So, you know, I think it still has a lot of value to the people that are a member of it, but obviously it's got a lot of real estate value, just like Rosemere did, you know, which obviously moved last year, I believe.
Yeah, and I mean Beaconsfield, the 18th hole is one of my favorite holes, finishing holes in Quebec for sure. I know Laval, the green course, is beautiful too, going up to the clubhouse. But Beaconsfield, the 18th, is really, really special. And then when you design a course, like when you map out a course, like how do you find, like, this is going to be number one, this is going to be number two, this is going to be, is it like a computer that kind of maps up the thing, or do you actually see it visually when you're on site?
Well, usually you take the topographic map. There's a bit of a method to it. So typically a topographic map, you usually find a high point that's somewhat central, and that's where your clubhouse would probably be best suited. So a high point in the middle of your property. And then you always want to play your first hole not going into the rising sun. So you would never play east on your first hole. And the same as your 18th hole would never be playing west. You would try and avoid that. So when you put those little parameters together, all of a sudden it starts to fall into place. And we'll do multiple routings, which is, you know, the locations, the sequence of the holes and what direction they play before we decide that I think this is the plan. But often we do 2-3 options and we show our client them, and we'll usually have one of them we think is the strongest of them. But that's kind of where you start. But you have to take into account the high points. You generally want to tee off high points, play down to the lower ones. It's not really, you want to avoid, you know, blind shots. You want to avoid hitting uphill. Occasionally you can throw it in there, but you certainly don't want a course that you're hitting uphill all day and you're always hitting over hills. Most people don't enjoy that. So that's kind of the recipe that you know, you use.
It's funny you talked about Pebble Beach, because one particular course that we play in the Pebble Beach rotation is Spyglass. And after the first hole that goes down and the third hole goes down, it seems like the rest of the round you're hitting back uphill to the clubhouse. And I find it visually so difficult because, you know, it's only a 370-yard par 4, but you're going up 40 yards. And I find that incredibly difficult. And you have at Beaconsfield, you have the 11th hole that, you know, just a little tee shot down the hill, and then you gotta. For me, even though, you know, I'm pretty good with my sticks, I find the uphill blind shots extremely difficult.
They are. There's no question. You know, back in Scotland when they used to build with horses and plows, and they didn't move much earth. They would just take the land and they just play it how it was, and they had to get from A to B, and they didn't want to walk too far between holes. So sometimes there was a hill in the way and you'd have to play over it, and that just became part of the quirkiness of the old golf. But then when you start bringing in the big equipment in North America and you start moving dirt around and saying, well, it doesn't have to be like that. We can do whatever we want. We have huge equipment here. We got budgets. So people started taking away those blind shots, those uphill shots. And that's kind of what North American golf is. It's a lot, it pampers you a bit more, and you play from high points, you play down to low. You won't have blind shots. You won't hit over hills, too often. Occasionally, it's fine. But I think most people, like you say, they don't really enjoy hitting up to a blind pin. Even if you hit it in the hole, you wouldn't know, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I prefer downhill shots more than uphill for sure. When you, let's say the blue course at Laval, when it was redone by Mike Weir and all that, when you go and play or look at a course design, I don't know. Take me into the mind of a golf architect. Are you there criticizing the actual architect and you're like, nah, I would have done that, I would have done this, I would have done that? Or do you actually appreciate someone else's work?
It's a bit of both. When we play courses that we really like, and maybe their styles are similar to ours, we really love them, like become passionate about them. And we'll tell everybody that will listen to us, you have to go play this golf course, even if it's done by someone else. This is the most amazing golf course you will play. It's incredible. What comes to mind in that, that type of course would be Tobacco Road down in North Carolina. It's not that long. And maybe it's not a members course, but as a tourist to go play it once or twice, it will absolutely blow your mind. You will see bunkers there that you will never see anywhere in your life. And you will just go, wow, this place is incredible. And it may beat you up, but you will definitely leave there going, wow, that was an experience. And as an architect, to see someone like Mike Strands push the envelope on that project was really cool for us. And we were influenced by a lot of his work in the visual part. And to maybe, do some stuff that's a little crazy, but a lot of fun and makes it exciting. And, that's kind of where that goes.
I felt the exact same way you just mentioned when I played Prairie Dunes in Kansas, Core Crenshaw, which is a very popular duo in the United States right now. And there was a wow factor. It is hard. It's a hard course, but it's, the terrain, the greens. Obviously, Mr. Crenshaw was a pretty good putter in his day, so he loves a lot of slopes on the green and stuff like that. So I thought that was really interesting. And so have you been to Augusta before? Or?
I have not, unfortunately. My brother went, but I haven't had the opportunity, no. Yeah, obviously on my bucket list.
That's really a cool course. A little rapid fire question. Favorite sport team?
Montreal Canadiens.
When you mentioned the Toronto affiliation at the beginning, I was a little worried, I have to admit.
I've been to 2 parades, so I'm doing okay.
Okay, yeah, you're fine. You're fine. What type of golf clubs do you play? Do you stick to a brand or?
Yeah, I have Titleist AP3s, so that's kind of between a 5 and 12 handicap. A little more forgiving than the tour ones. I got them a couple of years ago, and yeah, I just love them. Fantastic.
Okay. So are you Titleist through and through? Drivers, Vokey wedges?
No, I have my driver is Callaway, I guess it is. What is it? The
Epic.
Epic, yeah. So I have an Epic driver, and I have the Epic 3-wood.
Okay, Titleist golf ball, or do you?
Yeah, Pro V for sure.
Fantastic. Favorite course in Quebec?
A little biased, but I would. It's hard to say. Yeah, either Lemaitre or Fontainebleau.
Yeah, I've actually never played Fontainebleau. I take that back. I've played. I believe we played 3 holes. It was a pro-am format. When I was on the Canadian tour, they took 1 Canadian tour player, 1 celebrity, which mine was Vincent Lecavalier, the hockey player, and then I had Fred Funk. It's when the Champions Tour used to play. So, I've been on property. I've seen 3 holes, but, I'm definitely going to give him a call to go over there. I can't thank you enough for your time. It was really interesting, and thanks for reaching out. That was really cool to get in the mind of a golf course designer, and it's really interesting to see how you guys get from point A to point B. And best of luck with La Tempête and all that, and hopefully we get to play around this summer.
That would be great. Yeah, it's very nice talking to you, Johan, and take care.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.